Two, landing versus space, players versus referees, flopping versus the media, and oh yeah, Rockets Warriors, if there's time for basketball. Also, did Kyle Lowry really try to go through the legs of Tobias Harris with the game on the line? Let's go.
Got him a good shot. 5-hole.
Rockets Warriors game 2. The impossible situation Scott Foster and Ed Malloy and Eric Lewis find themselves in tonight. About Scott Foster, it was a hot topic this morning and afternoon that the last game he reffed that included Houston was February. We took a look to see if that's abnormal. It does not appear that's abnormal, and you can understand why. There's a lot of refs and a lot of games. James Harden was fined for complaining about Foster after that last game in February. Over the past 3 seasons, Harden has fouled out of 4 games. 3 have been reffed by Foster. So there's all that. Also, there's Steve Kerr flopping with the media. And there's the Rockets' history of auditing refs' calls. Game 7 last year, that came out. 81 missed calls, they said. 81. We'll get to that in a second as well. But Sarah, tonight, will it be basketball or the refereeing that decides it?
Well, that, of course, depends on the perspective of who you're asking. If you're asking me what decided the first game, it might be that James Harden missed 19 shots, Clint Capella didn't take a shot in the first half, and that James Harden's cohorts couldn't hit from behind the arc in the first half either. Or if you ask someone else, they might say it came down to 1 or 2 calls.
Hold on a second. I'm asking you, Sarah Spain. You're in Plasma 3 for a reason. I'm asking you. Answer, please.
That's the rub here, is we're going to end up talking about the officiating because this is what this entire season has led up to, is a conversation about adding a third player in the game. One team, the second team, and the refs are the third team. I think it's going to be about basketball still, but what are we going to be talking about afterwards? Probably officiating.
Does anybody have any light shed there by Sarah Spain? I don't know. Kevin Blackstone, I'll ask you the same question. Is tonight going to come down to refereeing or basketball? Can you answer that for us?
Well, right now it's going to come down to refereeing because that's where we left off in Game 1. That was an atrociously called game for much of the game by the referees. They seem to have changed the rules of the NBA at the beginning of that game. So, of course, we're going to be looking at every call on every jump shot, particularly the three-pointers, to see who's landing under who and what the result is going to be, which is really a shame because I was looking forward to this series. I just want to see some good ball, and it seemed to have been marred by the way that the referees.
So if I was going to ask you a second question here, Kevin Blackstone, do you believe, since it's about referees, this will have a satisfying end for anybody? I think your answer would be no. It seems like you're not getting the ball you wanted. You're just getting quibbles about calls that are nearly impossible to make. Woody Page, can you answer the question for us?
I'm going to answer it specifically. We're going to see basketball. That's what's going to determine tonight because the Warriors had their bad home game. Now they're going to have their good home game in this series. And let's talk about Kevin Durant. The guy's averaged 40 points in his last 5 playoff games. I mean, that's almost unheard of unless you're LeBron James, maybe, or Kobe Bryant. So, secondly, as I said, the Warriors didn't play very good. That game was ugly. It was hairy. It was based on officials' calls. This one, I think, is going to go so far away from the Rockets, they can't complain about anything except their own play. That's how this game's going to end.
Tim Kalisha?
I hope we're talking about basketball tomorrow. I think we will be. There's no other series. When you take Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and James Harden, that's an array of MVPs, both finals and regular season, that no other series can match. You got the defending champs against the team that thinks they should have beaten, and not because of the officials, but because of the Chris Paul injury, the defending champs. If this isn't a great series to watch purely for basketball, then I don't know which series would be. But unfortunately, the loser is going to be talking about the officiating, and that's where we've come to in this. And it's a terrible place to get in any sport, but in one where the fans, a lot of fans, I should say, already buy into too many conspiracy theories about officiating. It's a terrible place to be.
So you would call these conspiracy theories. Let me get a window into your soul if we can, Tim, because I want to, you said off air right before we came here that this makes you sad. Can we sit in your sadness for a little bit? Tell me more about this.
Well, it does make me sad. We shouldn't be, the best of the NBA should be these players. The worst of the NBA is whiny players and the media that kind of fosters those stories and eats them up, and the fans who buy into all this. Yeah, it is about Scott Foster. It is about this official and that official. When the reality is, watch James Harden shoot. What should those calls be? There's contact on all of them. You tell me exactly what the right call is.
This is interesting to me, Tim, and you just put a little bit of it on the media, which is fine. I think part of it goes there. But there is this audit that the Houston Rockets put together. Their team has invested man-hours, time, money into figuring out how many calls referees missed. And in Game 7 of last year, it was 81 by their measure. They have algorithms which translate to the actual points on the floor. What is that about, Woody Page?
Well, it's about bad timing, first of all, that it's come out during the series, right after we've just gone through the discussions about the first game of the series. It's a ridiculous effort that was made by the Rockets. And that quote where they said 18.6 points, if that had changed, there would have been another eventual NBA champion last year. What does that really mean? I mean, the Rockets franchise and its ownership really wants to go down that road and say that they should have been the champions last year, or let's play the last game over again. It makes no sense whatsoever. It was like somebody came in one day and said, I'm going to go through all the stats and find a way that we should have won the series last year. It's over. It's wrong.
Sarah, can I ask you, do you believe there's any value in auditing and looking into every call of games, both last year or even just 2 days ago?
Well, they're not going to be changed, right? And kind of like the 2-minute report where the question is whether it's actually good for the league because they're being transparent or bad for the league because if you can't go back and change the calls, are you just making people even madder by telling them that you got them wrong? You can look at James Harden and say you've got 172 more free throws than the next closest player. What are you talking about not getting a fair shot? Or you can say a lot of the plays that the Houston Rockets pointed out absolutely were called wrong. So do we need to question the training of the officials, whether the league is taking seriously enough what kind of officiating is being done and whether they're putting people in the place to make the right calls? I mean, there's going to be human error, but at some point we can say, are we questioning whether they're setting up these calls to be made correct?
Tim, what do you think they're trying to say by auditing the game last year, or is it helping or hurting?
Oh, it's hurting. I mean, I can't imagine doing this, and I'll just say that the biggest arguments I've had through the years with a certain local NBA owner who shall remain nameless is that his constant screaming at and harping on officiating gives his team a built-in excuse for when they lose. It's never their fault. It's always the officials. The Rockets seem to be going down the same path.
Does anybody think it's helping in any way? I mean, let's get back to the Scott Foster of this, Kevin Blackistone. Scott Foster that is under the microscope tonight. Is that going to affect how he referees the game?
Well, the only way it could help is when we look back and we've seen coaches or players call out calls that they felt that they didn't get in a previous game, and then some of us in the media sit back and say, oh, that's really smart because now they're putting that official on the spot, and that official is going to be more likely to look for that particular call. But I was in Dallas for so long with that unnamed owner who called out officials for so long, and the sentiment there was it was not helpful.
Right, not helpful. No, so the idea that there's a conversation whether Scott Foster should be refereeing this game, you would say that's ludicrous, right? Kevin Blackistone, you would say the league has to stand behind. Of course.
Right, because had the league pulled him out of this game, then all of a sudden you open up another can of worms and you're questioning whether or not he can be a fair arbitrator of a game.
It's not just the audit, though. It's also Steve Kerr with the media. Will that help or hurt? You know, I mean, he's trying to draw attention to exactly what this is in a mocking way, not in the way that the Rockets did. I mean, it's an incredible, fascinating thing that is happening before Game 2 of a series, and we're going to see it played out in real time tonight. Well, real pick for the game. I know, Woody Page, you've got Golden State winning because you have them going back to their ways. Kalisha, who you got?
I think it's a tough game again, but I think Golden State wins again tonight.
Warriors.
Kevin Blackistone.
H-Town.
Okay, we'll move on. Philly 94, Toronto 89. The adjustments that were made and the runs in this game, both up on the court and off it. Embiid 12, 6, and 5 for the night. What did you see from Philly that most changed the tide here to make it 1-1, Tim?
Well, I think it's one thing mainly. It's 43 minutes from Jimmy Butler. This was like the old days. He's back with the Bulls, never coming out of the game, making big plays, hitting big shots, leading his team. You know, he's got great players around him, but he's mostly got great young players, the two key guys, Embiid and Simmons. And even though Butler doesn't have rings, he's played in a lot of playoff games. He's been in a lot of battles. I think what he did last night, I think that carried his team to victory.
Sarah Span, your takeaway to turn the tide to 1-1?
Yeah, Butler offensively and also defensively against Lowry and Leonard, but I also think putting Embiid on Siakam worked. Embiid was not at 100%, and certainly offensively wasn't the way he had been before. But when we looked at Leonard in that first game and we pointed to how great his game was, Siakam was right behind him, and they have not gotten bench scoring. They've gotten 15 total points from their bench in the first 2 games of the series against the Sixers. So it's not just about stopping Leonard. It's about stopping the one other guy that's doing damage, and they did it yesterday.
Yeah, and not only did they only get 2 buckets from their bench the other night, but they only got 2 buckets from Green and Gasol as starters. That can't happen again, and it's not likely to happen. The one thing I look at when I look at the Raptors in this game, they seem to have picked up the pace a little bit in the second half. I mean, they scored 51 points in the second half, outscored the Sixers in those 2 frames, but they just got off to such a lousy start. They were in too deep of a hole.
Woody Page.
We have panelists who will tell us that you can't make alterations, you can't make adjustments during a series. You have to go with what you brought to the party. That's not true. They made 4 different matchup changes. Philadelphia, in particularly putting Simmons, making that change there was so significant last night. Number 2, I'd say Jimmy Butler has recognized what he's supposed to be for this team. He was trying to fit in early. They were trying to fit with him. Now he's just saying, I'm the guy. Come to me. And the third thing, and Kevin kind of touched upon it, the reserves, when Van Vliet and Ibaka don't give you anything, nothing. All night long, you're supposed to have the better bench than Philadelphia. You had no bench last night.
So now the adjustments to the adjustment that you know is going to come. And this is interesting, Woody. I like where you're thinking here. Where's the bench for Toronto? Now they go on the road. Historically, the bench doesn't play as well on the road. Sarah, an adjustment that Nick Nurse would be looking into right now?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just looks like they're not being allowed to play the pace that they want, and they're not sticking with what got them such success in the regular season. I'm not sure exactly what it is about the bench that has them lacking in aggression and not being able to be effective, but that's going to be the biggest thing in this series because Leonard's going to get his, Siakam's probably going to get his, but that bench needs to step up.
And KB, you implied, or you said actually, that that's not going to happen again, which is my favorite type of analysis. Why do you think that's not going to happen again for Toronto? They'll go back to being who they are.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's not the way they played all year. And I think, you know what, we wouldn't be talking about this if Danny Green had hit that three-pointer, that wide-open three-pointer at the end on the scramble. So,
or yeah, Kyle Lowry didn't attempt to go through the legs. Honestly, to go through the legs in that moment, are you advised? Is anybody advising that? Incredible. We've been showing that highlight for the last 24 hours. It's just
no behind the back passes.
Then there's also the very human reaction from 2 very human people who know their way around human humor and humanity. Look at this.
This was James Butler. Like, that was the adult in the gym.
My name isn't James. Literally.
Hold on to your Nuggets. 121-113. Denver over Portland last night. Just when you thought we were done talking about players, talking about referees, Blazers are unhappy here. Jokic, 37-9-6. He's averaging 25-12-9 this postseason. What is the lesson you learned from Game 1, Woodrow?
Well, you got to add 3 steals and 2 blocked shots, which makes him only the 3rd NBA player in history. Let me give you a couple of names: Dr. J and LeBron James. He's never going to be confused for either one of those guys, but they can't figure out how to stop him. The way you play him, I don't want to give you Blazers something, is that you play him straight up, because once you leave the player you're guarding, he's going to get the pass.
Does anybody think Woody Page just gave the Blazers something? And if he did, if he in fact did, Woody, and this is the reason why the Blazers beat the Nuggets in this series, you're going to be hearing it from your fans, your readers. Move on. Buy or sell too? No, Kalisha, go.
I'm objective.
Terry Stotts is going to be so grateful for that information. It's going to be a huge difference in the series. My favorite thing about Denver is just now people are watching him play and they're realizing that Jokic is, in fact, the best point guard in the league. That's where he spends all his time, out at the top of the key, and it is tough to stop.
Spain.
I don't know what's left to say after Woody's chalk talk, but I guess I will add this much, that the Blazers need to not worry about complaining about the refs, not play so sloppy, and think about putting someone other than Enes Kanter on Jokic, because it doesn't seem like he's the right man for the job. Offensively, great. Defensively, not so much, which is going to be a conundrum for them in this series.
What a great story for the Nuggets. As young as they are, where they were last year, and really everybody doubted that they were a number 2 seed in the West until you see them play now. Jokic is a real deal.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience here, Kevin Blackistone, in doubting the Nuggets all season long. Yes. We'll move on. Buy or sell 2, quote, I think sometimes adjustments and all those things are actually somewhat overrated. Mike Budenholzer, Celtics, Bucks, game 2 tonight. Tim, buy or sell Milwaukee going in with the no adjustments needed, let's just be ourselves strategy.
I'm going to buy it, although I think it's kind of a product of they know the best adjustment they can make is to get Brogdon back in the series, and that won't happen until at least they get to Boston. I think they can play better pick-and-roll defense and better defense on Kyrie Irving and shoot better and win.
Sarah Spain?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right approach for them. They need to play with more urgency, more aggression. They only hit 29% from 3 outside of Giannis, and their game plan has been if people are going to collapse on Giannis, they can kick it out and hit those shots, which they couldn't. The fact that Giannis had more shots blocked than went in the paint tells you that this is probably an aberration, and they're likely going to adjust and get better play from both him and everyone else. So I like.
That's 2 times Sarah Spain's gone to. They need more aggression, which is an interesting plot line from Spain. Blackistone, how about you?
Well, I think the interesting thing, though, that Sarah pointed out was Giannis getting those shots blocked because here's a guy who trusted his teammates most of the year. Here's a guy who was taking on triple teams this time by himself. He can't do that. Don't get caught up into that.
So that would be an adjustment I think you're making then, Kevin Blackistone, that Giannis has to be more of a distributor. He was minus 24 in game 1, Woody Page. What's it going to take for him not to be that tonight?
Well, as I said earlier, and some people are opposed, you can make adjustments. Here's the adjustments. Celtics are setting up a fence outside the paint. So as a result of that, the way you get him the ball is lobs, backdoor plays. Sure. You set picks for him. You get him more involved, particularly earlier, because when he gets off to a great start, that makes a difference for him as a player.
Woody Page, I mean, you're going straight from this show to the sideline. You're going to be coaching these games.
He said picket fence, and he got 12 points.
Who are you picking in this game, Timmy?
Yeah. Oh, tonight, Milwaukee.
Sarah Spain?
They it up tonight.
The Bucks.
You are more aggression. You're very on brand. Blackistone, how about you?
I do.
Bucks.
Page.
Bucks.
Milwaukee after this show.
Buy or sell 3. Cody Bellinger starts of the season. 434, 1437, and a 508 on base and a 906 slugging. I'm going to ask you this, Sarah Spain. What does it all mean? This is the most RBI ever to start the year, second most home runs, highest OPS in a decade and a half. What does it mean?
Well, of the top 10 March-April OPS in history, 4 of them went on to be for MVP seasons. So, of course, it means he's going to win the MVP. Nothing bad could possibly happen the rest of the year.
Kevin Blackistone, how about you?
It means it's something to behold for right now, and it means that opposing pitchers need to start thinking about how they approach this guy because obviously they're not trying to avoid him right now.
That's the takeaway, that opposing pitchers need to be better. Woody Page, how about you?
Well, he just works right into pitchers like I use a rental car when I get one. I have watched him in spring training and in about 8 or 9 games against the Rockies. He's made some adjustments in his swing. He's more looking for velocity and height than he was before. Last year, at that
now you're looking. Okay, so a couple holes in the ship right now, Woody Page, and Hertz wants to talk to you about your rental car usage. Kalisha, how about you?
It's good that he did it because they didn't get a lot out of Kershaw at all, and they didn't really get much in the way of good pitching from Walker Buehler. Bellinger's carrying the team.
Or the biggest takeaway is, they didn't go after Machado or Harper, or they didn't land those guys, but right now that's not burning up. That's it for Spain. Blackistone. Woody Page taking in some order, but still makes the showdown. Kalisha, Page next.
That's it.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, presented by Ordinitos, part of Happy Hour.
Blues 4, Stars 3. This was incredible. St. Louis up 2-1. Essa Lindell, 1-2-3 falls. Penalty for embellishment, but Bortuzzo got a penalty for a cross-check. Later in the game, Lindell on the ice for St. Louis winner didn't get a whistle. What's the lesson learned, and who won, Tim?
Blues won the game, and Blues won that battle. You got to get the cross-check penalty and not get the embellishment. Stars needed a power play.
No, it's the embellishment. Tim, you would know about that. You flopped the last 3 times you've been on this show and never been called for it. So
right, but if the referees thought he was crying wolf for the most important moment of the game, Woody, that's not good. Dallas gets a win here. We'll move on. Showdown 2. Things left behind at Talladega's infield. You see it all right here. Mayonnaise coming up, a bicycle seat, knee brace, a mannequin torso. Woody, who you got?
It's the hairdryer. she also left her husband there when he didn't actually compliment her on how nice she had done her hair during the.
Hey, that's
I'm just glad the only torso found there was a mannequin. That's progress. I'm going to say the blue. Give me that blue recliner. I could do some damage.
Give me that. Kalishaw and Showdown for the win. FaceTime, Tim.
Yeah. No flopping there, sir. We talked about the hottest baseball player in the month of April as we come to a close. How about the hottest team or the best team? How about the Tampa Bay Rays, 19-9? And the thing is, if we're surprised, we shouldn't be. They won 90 games last year. We kind of ignored that because of what the Red Sox were doing. This team has about 3 guys named Lowe and Lau. They have Tyler Glass now. They have people you don't even know, but they know how to win baseball games.
Well, then you're happy to be the Tampa Bay Rays of Around the Horn right now, Tim Kalishaw, aren't you? We'll see you tomorrow, 23.5 hour break.
Happy Hour